Hello, welcome for Waiting for Game, the weekly podcast presented by Melee Stats. I am your host, Give Me That Wheat. I am a tournament seeder. I help with the top 100 from PG, and with me today is my co-host Edwin Budding, the author of the Book of Melee. What is up, Edwin?
Not much, man. I'm excited to talk about a great weekend of Melee. A bunch of really cool things happened at Riptide, and I'm really happy that we got a great guest for today. None
We
other than the
yeah,
Riptide champion.
the winner of Riptide. We have Logan. What is up, Logan?
What's up? I'm Logan, the artist formerly known as LSD. I just got back from Ohio. Interesting place. I had Olive Garden. I think it absolutely destroyed my stomach. I got to see blue skies. I live in the city, so that's pretty rare for me. But yeah, it's going pretty well.
So we're going to talk a lot about Riptide. You know, this is the first we talked about. This is the first open major back that Smash has seen in such a long time. But Logan, I gotta ask, what did you get at Olive Garden?
I got chicken. Uh, it's like Alfredo, but it had like five different names. And when the waiter brought it to me, he was like, "Here is your meal with many many names." I was like, "What do you mean?" And then I looked back on the menu and I realized like the thing I ordered was like incredibly like complex, and it was just like the actual name itself was by far the longest thing on the menu. And I got it specifically because I was just interested in seeing what it was that had that many names, and it was like some weird like shell stuffed thing. But it was pretty good.
A complex meal for a complex gamer. Um,
Mm.
you over the weekend you showed your prowess at the game by winning the fantasy bracket.
Mm.
You must have some intel that the rest of this podcast doesn't, because I didn't get anywhere near first. I didn't make one. Edwin, did you make a little fantasy
No,
team?
I did not, but given my luck in predictions last weekend, maybe I should have.
Yeah, I think you were onto something. You predicted IBW would win. So like what a crazy prediction, and it did end up to turn out. Like we saw a pretty monumental thing. I think the gravity of the situation of like IBW winning this is for me personally, it's a little muted, just because I think we all knew that he could do it. I think that this tournament was really it was set up to be a tournament that could possibly be really good for him, and obviously we saw through his bracket that he did really well. You know, he ended up winning. So I'm not sure if people are surprised, but regardless, this is still like a monumental occurrence. Edwin, like how many people have we seen win a major of this size?
So, me and Pika, my fellow Smash historian, have talked about this a lot. And I would say that IBDW, based on I mean, a lot of this depends on what you would count as a major and what you would say doesn't count as a major. And of course, within majors, there's delineations you can make between super majors and smaller ones. But I would say that for winning a tournament like Riptide, given who was there, so IBDW, HBox, Plup and Wizrobe, some pretty strong players. I know Mango and Zane aren't there, but you still have people that are capable on the outside of winning super majors. Given the level of talent, given the circumstances of this being the first open major since you know, in a long time since the pandemic started, I think both the importance of the event, the talent at it, made it at least a smaller, like on the lower end of majors. And when you look at tournaments comparable to it, it's a really small list of people who have won them. Just about like 18 people in Melee history after last weekend. It's quite rare that you have someone like IBDW who is good, who is getting better, and obviously it's just a matter of time until someone like him can finally put it all together for a weekend. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's worth noting how extraordinary this is in Melee history. It's not easy to win an event like Riptide, even if there's no Manga or Zane. Like, this really does cement IBDW in a elite, in like a pantheon of players. Not many people can say that they've accomplished this kind of thing.
So you mentioned, obviously this tournament didn't have Zane, this tournament didn't have Mango, and I think we might get into what that entails for the what the bracket ended up being. But it's gonna sound funny. It goes without saying, no Armada. How important is Armada to you? You said 18 people. What how important is Armada's lack of competitive drive? I don't want to say competitive drive. What has Armada's retirement done to the number of major winners that we've seen recently?
Well, since Armada's retirement, or at the very least since his last like real big event, I would say that at least in the last 3 years, so this is including the tail end of Armada's career, we've had 4 new major winners between Zayn winning Shine and obviously Genesis. We've had Wizra winning Smash and Splash. We've had Axe winning Summit. Now we've had IBDW winning Riptide. So this is 4 new people to this level of play that we can confirm, at least, of being able to win a super. I'm not saying that being able to win a major. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that other players can't do it. I'm not saying it's impossible for someone like S2J or even Amsa on the right day to maybe take a tournament. But at least as far as a group of people that we know have done it, it's undeniable, in my opinion, that the last 3 years have been pretty big for that. And whether that's because Armada's not there, whether Armada saw the horizon of new competitors coming up.
Come on.
No, I'm saying
I
this
don't subscribe to this idea.
facetiously. No, I'm saying this like half jokingly, but regardless, whatever the circumstances are, whether he's the landscape of the field has definitely opened up quite a bit in the last few years.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that as big of an occurrence we talk about this is, you say 18 people have won majors in, let's say, we probably weren't having majors in 2001, 2002. Maybe 2000. What would you say the first major was? 2003, 2004?
2004-ish. Like
Okay,
I would say.
So like 18 players in like 17 years. Obviously, this is a monumental occurrence. I don't think that this is going to be the last time that I could see a Waiting for a Game episode at sometime in the next year where we do the same exact thing. Like we talk about how there's a 19th person. I definitely don't think that this is something that Melee is, obviously Melee has proven to be such a tough game to really crack into, that like really top echelon, but I think we have a ton of players who can do so. Logan, I want your opinion. So you were in top 8. Did you get to watch any of the sets that were happening later in bracket, like winners finals, grand finals, that type of stuff?
After I lost, I left the venue and I went back to my hotel room and I listened to Frank Ocean's Blonde in the shower. So I didn't really watch any of the other sets, but later on I went back and watched it, and I think a lot of the results that happened were a little bit kind of reaffirming of the status quo in Melee as it stands. So like Kadoran losing to Wizrobe, worse than he lost to Wizrobe before, when Kadoran really looked like he could just like take the set from Wizrobe.
Mm-hmm.
IBDW winning. I thought IBDW would win all along, mainly because he's just the third best player and none of the other top
third best
two
or
were
third
there.
best in North America?
Third best in the world. I don't really think Leffen is on the level of IBDW right now, but he could definitely be like there if he wanted to, just due to his natural ability to like learn, like his optimized learning process. I think he could take IBDW's spot, but like as it stands, he's a little bit like below the, I guess, the top echelon right now, specifically just because he doesn't have like that access to top level practice in tournaments. Like there was a point where he was playing Zane a lot through that cross country net play, or cross ocean net play, I guess you could say. But I haven't really seen him been playing too much recently. He's been really focusing on Strive, so I would say I'd put IBDW in the third spot in the world right now.
Damn. I mean, it's hard to contend with the fact that IBW just won a major. So I definitely think that's an opinion. I mean, more than anything, I just want to see. I want to see that, right? Like that is something that we have been waiting to see. So hopefully we get to see it. Before we go on, what's your favorite Frank Ocean song?
Siegfried.
Oh, okay. I'm a Chanel guy.
I like Pyramids.
I like
wow, look at us.
Self-Control. Those are probably my favorites.
So when you mention so talking about self-control, how do you have self-control when looking back at your matches? Like, are you the type of person who, same day watches your matches back, or is this something where like we've seen a great rise in your play? Are you someone who watches your shots back?
Yeah, I watched my set with Axe immediately. That like same night. Uh, I didn't really feel too bad about losing because I think I did pretty well. I definitely made a lot of like progress. Even though I took less games than I did at Summit, I feel like I played much better, and every game that I did play was way closer. Because in the Axe set, I got blown out the first two games, and then like the third game, I started to kind of pick it up. But during the set with him at Riptide, I was playing my best the whole time.
Mhm.
And really, the deciding factor was the fact that I was so nervous on the stage. I think if I wasn't so nervous on the stage, I could have won the set.
Huh. Yeah, that's a good point. You mentioned how, before I say anything, I want to say, Logan Axe. I don't know how that's gonna become if we keep seeing it in the future, but I'm liking that as a little rivalry. So we'll see how that progresses. But yeah, you mentioned how Riptide in your mind kind of was affirming, but just by seeing the results. I think when I look at Smash Summit 11, I think it was kind of affirming of the status quo from all the craziness that was Slippy. I think that like the up and comers really proved themselves at Smash Summit 11. I think that with the exception of Yingling, I think that all the people who were like not top 50 on the 2019 MPGR all ended up taking sets, which is like such an incredible thing. But I definitely think it was like closer to the land that we saw, and I think that Riptide was a little bit of another step further. Not something that is like unthinkable to happen, on line or anything like that, but just kind of something that might be skew a little closer to what we remember from lands. And I got to ask you, as someone who has, you were at Smash Summit 11, you obviously got top 8 at Riptide. Um, what was the atmosphere of the chain of the two tournaments were so different? How did that change affect you as a competitor?
I was a lot less nervous on land than I am on net play, I think. On land, when I can see like the other opponent, I feel like I have just a better mentality in general. Like net play, I get really tilted very easily in net play, but on land, I'm pretty like calm overall. And I think that's just because when you're playing someone in net play, you can kind of forget that there's someone else on the screen, and it feels very robotic and a little bit lonely. And those kind of negative feelings can compound. But on land, like with all that sense of community and group experience, it really makes for a more positive experience overall. Like going to land tournaments feels a lot more healing than going to net play events.
How is the difference between the invitational atmosphere of Summit 11 versus the 700 plus melee entrance of Riptide?
Riptide was more stressful by far
Mm-hmm.
because at Summit they kind of just take care of everything for you and they basically schedule your day out for you. And no matter how you do, you're generally going to benefit. Like you're gonna get a ton of Twitter followers, you're gonna get money, you're gonna get experience, no matter what. But like at a major, you can just like flop, and that's just like really bad for your career. But like at Summit, no matter how well you do, it's just pretty good for you. So there's a lot less pressure for me on Summit. At Summit, there was just a lot less pressure in general, even though there's a lot more people watching. The prize pool was bigger.
For
Yeah.
sure. I mean, let's talk about IBW. We kind of mentioned this earlier, but both of you called this, and with the skill level that we saw at this tournament, I think honestly, maybe Axe wasn't at this level, but I think like the top 5 seeds, HBox, Pluck, Wizzy, IBW, Axe, I think all of them were pretty scary, and I think that there's a lot of different ways this tournament could go. But Edwin, what was your inclination that really made you go towards IBW for winning this, and watching the bracket actually play out? What were your thoughts seeing it all come together?
I just like this matchup spread among the top level. I really thought that I thought that Summit was kind of a strange situation where he played in sets where against Plup and HBox where they were playing like really well, and
Mhm.
it was his first LAN event back, and those two had a bit more experience on that level. I know IBW had made it to Summit before, but Plup and HBox have been around the block for quite a bit. So heading into Riptide, I was quite hesitant to think that his online and rollback success against them was completely outweighed by one tournament, which is an unusual one. I had faith that he was going to pull through against both of those players, and I also thought that his matchup spread against everyone else is really solid. Like I was trying to think of people who could be potentially scary for him in bracket. Like maybe not people that he would be disadvantaged against, but I was trying to think of people that could possibly scare him, and a lot of them were on the other side of bracket. like
I mean, a
like
lot of them weren't in bracket in general. If we
yeah,
want to talk
well,
about the
that too.
scariest players for IBW, Zayn and Mango come to mind. It's not like one of those things. I think that we learned, as we mentioned earlier, that like when Armada didn't go to event, when Armada retired, not having to play him in one side of the bracket was really, really easy for a lot of people to like open up the field of who could win a major. And like I don't want to say it's the same for Cody. I'm not going to say that like having Zayn and Mango there makes it impossible for him to win. But I do think that those are the two biggest roadblocks at the moment. I think not having those players made the level of play. Yeah, I think like the people who he played here, I would either favor or say it's like basically even. I think that he had a really good group of players here who could which could line up in a way to make this happen. So it's one of those things, I mentioned we're not like super shocked that this happened, but it's still a huge deal for him to piece it all together.
Yeah, the just to kind of add on to what you're saying, I totally agree on the Mango and Zane point, but I even think just within the entrant field itself, I think IBDW. Sorry, Logan, but I think IBDW would still be favored against a lot of the other people. But I mean, I'll be honest. I think it is more favorable for IBDW to get through top 8 playing someone like Crudo than
Mm-hmm.
necessarily playing any collection of Ginger, Kadoran, and Logan. Right? Like these are scary players in bracket that could potentially, like, even if they're not favored over him, that's another roadblock that or not roadblock, but that's another obstacle that he has to deal with, and that, like, with a player like hunting for him, whereas I think, like, I think Crudo's certainly no slouch. He had a really good tournament at this event, but like in terms of getting to top 8, I thought the IBDW that we saw on day 3 was a lot more put together and a lot more focused in the game, and a lot better playing than necessarily IBW on day 2 of this event.
Yeah.
Like we saw Wally lose the set, but kind of scare him a little bit early on. We saw him play a little nervous against Panda and then collect it together. And I think, if Wally and Panda are instead Kadoran or Logan, or like if it's, say, like, if Axe is there, does IBW pull through? Maybe, but it's a lot harder, right? So when we reached top 8 on Sunday, I looked at IBW and HBox, and I said, I think this set is gonna. I thought to myself, I think this set is gonna determine who wins the event, because it would be really difficult for either of them to overcome the remaining field and losers.
For sure. Logan, you were mentioned as a scary player for IBW. You played Cody both online and now on LAN, I believe. I believe you played him at Smash Summit 11. How do you feel about him as a competitor, directly, like while playing him related to your matchup? And then how do you feel about just how he's playing generally?
I think IBDW is definitely better than me right now. He's definitely a clear cut above me, and I don't think I'd be favored going in any set versus him. But my skill level is kind of random at times, and sometimes I just win sets that I'm not expected to win. So like I don't think like I couldn't take a set from him. I just think in the long run that I wouldn't be able to. Like his skills of adaptation and awareness are like farther along than mine right now. So over a long period of time, I have less of a chance of taking a set. But like the faster the set goes, the more likely I am to do it.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah, definitely something that I could see pop up in the moment. Yeah, but he's such a scary player. Let's kind of scale this back a bit, because I talked about how the top 4, top 5 for this event are, it's kind of up in the air. IBW Was a little not too happy that he was fourth seed, but that just goes to show like just how close the level of talent was at the event. The skill level was just of this like top echelon so close. Um, and I think like we're all still learning a lot about these top players in how they're returning to LAN and what they have to show right now. I think Plup, even though I considered him, he's definitely a person who was one of the favorites to win. I think he was still super impressive. One of those players who can kind of be a question mark. We've seen him toy with that, the number one spot a bit. He wasn't really ever definitively number one, but we saw him in the striking distance of it. And then recently for LAN, we've seen him be someone who, if he sees like a SFAT or a Fiction or something like that in bracket, could be scary. Uh, I think his event was pretty affirming of like what we could see from Plup going forward. Going uh 3-2 with HBox, even though I don't know, did you guys get to end up watching that set that
Yeah, it
dude,
was a
that game
wild
4 on
set.
Yoshi's? Yeah, wild that dude, that's there's like 3 rest opportunities in a row. It was super scary, but he was able to clutch it out with Sheik, which is I think a question mark that a lot of people had, right? When it comes to Plup, it's his Fox is extremely good. If he ever busts out of Samus is very good as well. But I think if you want to determine how good Plup is going to be on any given day or any given tournament, I think that it's the Sheik that's the determining factor. And to see him feel enough confidence to go Sheik versus HBox was super cool. So I mentioned how Plup was someone who was a bit of a question mark on how he would do on LAN. I think like we have to talk about probably the biggest question mark of the top players, which is HBox. HBox is someone who, over the course of net play, we have seen a lot of losses. We have seen a lot of names be etched into the the history of Melee. Through the annals of Melee history. That being said, it's like with 2 LAN events now, where I think we're kind of getting like a little bit of a window into what 2021, maybe 2022 HBox might look like. So the big question is, knowing what we know, seeing what we've seen, do you guys think that HBox will win a major in 2021? Logan, do you have any opinions on this?
I think he will, and I think he'll do it dominantly. I have a lot of faith in HBox actually. I think HBox, when his mentality is right, is definitely better than everyone.
Damn.
um,
Yeah, I
like I
mean,
think,
you were a practice partner with him for a bit, right?
yeah, his general like ability to win is like nearly completely dependent on like how he's feeling. It's like if his mental is there and he has like the drive to win, he can just win versus anyone. But he's been like I was talking backstage. It was like me, HBox, and IBDW, and we were just talking about how like really HBox just needs to work on his mentality. Like his game skill is all there. Everything he needs to just win sets is all there and win
Mhm.
majors. But he's kind of holding himself back with his, I guess, lack of drive and desire to kind of branch into content creation and ultimate and that kind of thing. Like I think if he just solo focus on melee, he could do whatever.
Do you
But
think
I
So
that
think
he
are
how
you
could?
saying that he chooses to lose?
yes, HBox loses when he so chooses for sure.
It's hard to disagree with that statement. HBox does only lose when he so chooses. Um, yeah. So, do you think you're saying that mentality is one of the biggest thing that brings HBox back, but you still think that he's going to win a major? Do you think that he would still be able to win a major in his current state of, obviously being very into content creation, being very into Ultimate? Or do you think that the only way for him to win a major in 2021 is for him to just really go gung ho about Melee?
mm, I don't think in his current state he's going to win a major. I don't think there's really a shot of that. I'm specifically speaking from like the perspective of this player has an insane amount of potential if they like choose to focus on melee.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, if I was HRX, I don't really see the reason to just like go hardcore into melee right now. Like you were number one for a long time, so you have that, and you're making so much more money just doing other things and getting so much more like. status just not playing melee. Why would you just? What does he have to prove? He doesn't really have any. He doesn't really have anything to prove to anyone. That's really the thing. That's what makes HBox so good when he like is feeling it. That's literally the reason why HBox wins sets when he's like playing, like when his mentality is there, is because he has something to prove. He has something like he needs to like show people. And
Yeah.
right now, he kind of has everything, so he just does not need to show anything to people. He has nothing to prove to anyone, which ironically is just like making him just not like have that competitive drive.
Yeah, I do think that we talk about HBox a lot on this podcast. I feel like it's impossible not to talk about HBox in any given week, but we we end up talking a lot about it. But I really do agree with you. I think that HBox has like such a high base level of skill. I mean, he's one of the top 3 or 4 players of all time. Um, Obviously, it goes without saying that like he's able to maintain such a high level of play, even if he might not be giving it his all. But I do think that like a non-zero aspect of how much he decides to care is kind of based on proving people wrong. Whether it be about him not being as skilled, or about Puff not being good, or about him not deserving to be invited to Summit 10, or like whatever it is. I do think that like the way that HBox ebbs and flows is not entirely based on when people call him bad, but it's like it's definitely able to like kick him into gear, and an HBox that is kicked into gear is super scary. But
HBox
like,
needs more haters for sure. He definitely needs more haters to play
do you
better.
think he needs more?
Yeah.
You don't think he's doing enough with the number of haters he has? Yeah, I mean that's an interesting. Yeah, sure. Anyone who's watching out there, Logan says HBox needs some more haters. So if you're currently on the fence, if you're a fence sitter on the whole HBox issue, you know which way to go. Edwin,
You have to hate him in like a way that makes him play better though.
you have to hate him in a very specific way.
You have to call him bad.
Edwin, I'm sure you've got some thoughts on this.
I do actually. So I am sleeping on HBox in 2021 for many of the reason that you both are bringing up. Split priorities, not necessarily feeling like he has to prove himself at the moment. I mean, this is all armchair stuff, but I think the bigger thing, in my opinion, is that the top level field is really difficult. There are a lot of killers. They all now play different characters against him. If you look at Hungrybox's career, I'm speaking strictly as a historian, as someone who follows tournament results. Hungrybox is like the king of smaller majors. He used to go to events where it was just like, Plup and Mute King, or maybe Armada and someone else, and he'd get first or second at him.
Mm-hmm.
He'd attend a lot of tournaments. He'd win a lot of tournaments. And even when there were people who would consistently scare him or maybe even have the advantage against him, those people would either lose before reaching to HBox, or they would DQ at the event because they were playing Ultimate or something else. And I'm not saying that detracts from HBox's talent or his success. He's an incredible player. He's probably the most accomplished melee player ever in terms of just sheer tournament victories. But I think for a long time, this is going to sound like a weird distinction to make, but it felt like he had the least amount of like obstacles in a given bracket before, relative to a lot of the other competitors at his level of play. It felt like he had the least amount of roadblocks and I think today it actually feels like, look, we've seen Hungrybox online. It's not the same. It doesn't seem like, by the results, we have 2 offline tournaments. Seems like a completely different player. He's pretty legit. But I will say, I think that the one thing that we've seen carry over a little bit is just that everyone got really good and everyone's not playing Fox anymore against him. He going into a super major, by the time of Genesis, assuming we have it, he's going to have to prepare for Zane, Mango, Plup now. And Plup's someone he beat 10 times in a row before, but now he has to worry about Plup as well. Maybe like even if Plup is not favored over him, that's a scary opponent. He has to then worry about Amsa. Even though he beat Wizard, he has to prepare for Captain Falcon. Before, those characters were not even like maybe Amsa a little bit, and I guess Wizard specifically, but like it was not something that you would give much thought. It was that HBox was going to fight a bunch of Foxes in this bracket, and if he didn't fight Fox, he was going to win. That's not the case anymore. I think this is the toughest field that it like. I agree that it seems like HBox is back, but I don't think it's enough in 2021. There's just so many characters, there's so many people with a non-zero chance of beating him, and that's not even going into like the second. Like, what is Ginger versus HBox like on LAN? Is HBox favored? Yeah, but like, can Ginger, if they play at 6 tournaments in a row, is Ginger gonna take a set or two? Maybe. Certainly seems a lot more plausible than it did a few years ago. I think it's really tough. I don't think it'll happen this year. But I'm saying this is the ending point. Come 2022, I think HBox is going to realize that there's actually quite a bit at stake, because the other player in contention for the greatest player of all time is going to continue getting better, and Mango is going to continue winning tournaments, placing well, beating top players. So I actually think by next year it'll have been what, 4 years since Armada's retirement. There's going to be I don't know how, like, Logan, I'll trust you on this. I don't know how much HBox really cares about like all-time legacy and stuff, but I know for a fact that he has said in interviews before that one of his goals is that he wanted to be the #1 player in the world for 5 years in a row, because that was something no one else had done. Well, he did it for 3 years. One of the years, and then the year after his third year at #1, we moved to online, and his interest for the game kind of like for competing kind of fell off from there. And that seemed to be the case for a lot of 2021 until offline results come back. Logan, tell me, like, do you think that this is something that HBox would care about, that could potentially motivate him, knowing that he does have a chance to actually become the greatest player, but it would require taking it as seriously as his biggest rival?
I think he's less motivated by I guess external factors such as that, and more motivated by like I guess you'd say like his kind of inner feelings on things. So like, does he? I think he would want to prove to himself that he can still win majors. I think that would be like the thing that would motivate him to win majors rather than like legacy or any of that. Because the only thing like talking to HBox, the only like external thing I've ever heard him like say that motivated him that he like wanted to work on was he said to me once a while ago that he wished he had as much like status, especially with like streaming, as Manga. And this was like before HBox's like stream blew up with Ultimate and stuff. And like he eventually got that. Like he definitely he eclipsed Mango, and like since then he's just kind of been kind of coasting almost. And I really think going back to the question that he would need some sort of like I guess tournament that where he places very badly. I actually think HBox's chance of winning a major goes up if he has a tournament where he places just really badly.
Yeah.
Because I think what leads to HBox not winning majors is getting really close and then just like losing. Because I think that's the point where like HBox just like is like, okay, well I did good enough.
I
And
actually,
like
yeah,
yeah.
I agree really wholeheartedly about that. When you were talking about how HBox, about how HBox kind of needs to prove himself a bit, I think that's, you were talking about how that's like a non-zero factor. Yeah, I mean, he's got 2 third-place tournaments in a row, and I think that like that is really, really good. But I agree, like, yeah, if he gets 17th at some open major or something like that, if he goes to Low Tide City and gets 9th, losing to like Albert and Billy Bo Peep or something, I do think that the next major we see him at is there's a higher chance of him winning. I mean, yeah, it's like really tough in the year of our Lord 2021 to really determine what HBox could do. Well, I mean, I guess we know that he can win a major. It's just determining about whether or not that's something we'll see. I think it's going to be really tough considering whatever majors we or regional plus events or whatever in 2021 we consider a major. Um, it's going to have a level of talent that could be really difficult for him. So
The
in a
bit
couple weeks, we're going to see Super Smash Con Fall Fest, and if everyone who signed up is going, we will see Zane, we will see IBW, we'll see Wizzy, we'll see people who maybe not like favored, but have a good shot. Ginger, Logan, yourself. We still don't really know what Lod will be like on land. I'm a little less confident that it'll be like it was on online, but I still think that like a bracket like that, um, or a bracket like, you can throw Plup in there or you can throw Mango in there. I think that like the top echelon of players is so scary, and the number of people who can beat him, um, or take him really close is really high.
I think that like throughout like my time knowing HBox, the times in which he performs the absolute best are when the most people are counting him out, or when like the most people think he can't do something. Because that's like when everyone just like is like thinking like, oh, there's just no chance HBox takes this. He's just like, we'll put him at like fifth seed or something. That's when he wins every single time. But like or like the people around him that he respects are kind of like dunking on him a little bit. Like I think like for example streaming, like Mango is kind of trolling him a little bit with like his sub count and stuff like that, kind of making fun of HBox. And then HBox just like put everything into streaming after that. And I think we're actually kind of seeing it now with IBDW's relationship with HBox, kind of like motivating him to get his mentality up and kind of almost humbling him a little bit in
Hmm.
order to push him to greater heights. So I
Yeah.
think like right now the reason why I have so much faith in HBox is because it's like there's this like perfect storm of factors for an HBox miracle run that he's being counted out of winning things. He has people around him that are kind of like playfully like comparing themselves to him and like kind of forcing him to adapt to new circumstances. Like there's people around him that are what's the word for this? Using their like position in the community to like kick HBox into gear. So like IBDW is winning stuff now, and IBDW is like telling HBox all these things about like how he'll never win unless he does these things, and like he gets his mentality up, and like HBox is kind of one of those people that really takes advice from people that are more successful than him. So having people that are more successful than him kind of like tell him these things is really going to, I guess, put him into gear for a big tournament run.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. A few years ago, while HBox was like definitively number one, or whatever he was considered at the time, I remember like making up this thing about how I was like, it stinks that HBox keeps winning. It'd be really cool if HBox were like 10th in the world and he won. He still had a chance of winning, but he wasn't winning everything. And now it's funny because we're seeing that, and it's just like it's kind of you can never let your guard down when it comes to HBox. HBox, if you are a competitor, or if you, I assume, or if you are a spectator, it's just like impossible to 100% count him out at any given moment. Like he could end up being whatever. He was like 10th seed or something at Summit, and he got third place. Like I don't think at any moment it's really hard to count him out. But I guess I'll end this discussion by saying, that being said, while I think it's really possible to see, we need to see some change that we haven't been seeing, and it would need to be he would need to devote himself to melee, and also I don't think it's a 100% like cakewalk. It's not just, he needs to practice melee and then he'll win everything. I think that the level of play that we're seeing is really good, and a lot of players are pretty, have a decent history of doing very well versus HBox. Uh, but yeah, let's move on from HBox to yourself, Logan. Let's talk about your experience. So this was your first major back. This is a lot of people's first major back. But this was something you've been in the spotlight. You've done so well over the course of Slippy, and I think you had a little bit of a breakout in terms of just the community, some parts of the community getting introduced to you through Smash Summit 11. So I definitely think that this is a tournament that I don't think a lot of people were in the same boat as you. Maybe like you and Ben probably were the only people who were this level of um, you people like really watching you. I want to hear about what your experience was.
So my highest placing at a land major before this one was 49th. So it was very interesting to kind of experience some of the, I guess, the production elements of what makes a major. And also like just like sitting in front of the large crowd was really strange for me. Because at Summit you go into like this like private room to play and there's no one watching, no one really making sounds. Like you know that a ton of people are watching, but there's no one in the crowd like screaming. There's no like it was a very like quiet environment. And going for that kind of quiet environment to like the kind of loud, I guess, rambunctious venue of Riptide was a really interesting experience in practicing mentality. So, like, kind of stabilizing myself, meditating a lot, that really came into play at Riptide. The things I've been working on in terms of handling tilt. And, like, honestly, I went into the tournament with two goals. My first was to make top eight, and my second was after I lost to not be tilted. So like I think I did really well with those two goals. So I'm pretty happy about that. Like after I lost to J Flex, I got really sad, but like I kind of like I remember that like I'm still in the bracket and I kind of pulled myself back together. And then I kind of did what I do every tournament, which is go to losers super early and then make a large losers run.
Losers Logan.
Yeah, for some reason I cannot play in winners at all. I think it's because I play my absolute best when my back is to the wall and like I can't afford to lose. Um, it's almost like when I'm in winners, I think to myself like it's okay. Like even if I lose a set, I can still like play losers, and then like that causes me to lose in winners. So I definitely think it's exposed a lot of the elements of my play that are lacking, specifically in terms of almost out of game experience. I think this is gonna be kind of a hot take, but I think me, Kadoran, like Ben, etc., have the skill to just beat top 10 players. Like we can literally just like take sets off these players. We're not like there's no huge skill gap. What it is the experience of playing on those big stages and dealing with that pressure and really like HBox Club, Wizrobe, all those players have extensive experience in those high pressure environments and like really the newcomers are still getting used to it. So I really think like the Slippy generation's placements are just going to get progressively better as majors go up and up
Hmm.
and like keep going into the future. I think really the Slippy kids will just kind of break into top 10.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear. I think that there's an idea that kind of permeates through the community whenever they see like an up and coming player, and they'll be like, oh yeah, they don't have the composure, they're not ready for the big stage. If it's like a, commentators will say this all the time. If there's like a close set between an established top player and an up and comer who maybe is not even top 100 yet or something, uh, commentators will always say like, oh, one person's used to this and the other's not. So it's interesting to hear that you were in that situation, and you do feel like there's a bit of truth to that, right?
And like if you read like Kadoran's Twitter, he said the same thing. And I think Ben probably thinks the same thing. Ben is kind of Ben has a really like stable, I guess, like presence, and that like when you're playing him, he doesn't really seem to emote all that much, but he really like expresses his like level of anxiety in his play. So like I can always tell when I'm playing Ben whether I win or lose by like the first couple stocks, like the whole set. I can just tell instantly. Um, just based on like he's like a player that feels very just shaky when he's like stressed out. So
Well,
like
you did have a set versus him. You want to talk about your set of Riptide?
yeah, after the first couple of stocks, I knew that I would win the set because just specifically like I could just feel that like Ben was a little bit shaky, and I'm a player that really specializes in just destroying people who are like stressed out or anxious or like not playing under their best conditions. Because like I play such like a aggressive microspacing style that just really puts a lot of pressure on people. So I don't really I just the entire set I was just not giving him any room to breathe. I was trying to stay all over him, really break through his pressure. I actually I chose to exploit Ben's mentality more than I chose to just like play the game well, because like there's like a way of playing Marth Cheek. Like, the optimal way to play Marth Cheek is probably relatively defensive and kind of reactive. But if you like versus a Sheik that is like stressed out or tilting, if you get really aggressive and in their face, you can get more openings than if you play the correct style. So I definitely played a more exploitative style against Ben than I did versus Axe. Versus Axe, I was like thinking to myself like, okay, let me try and play this matchup as just best as possible. Like it didn't really feel like Axe like had any shakiness. Axe didn't really have any like he didn't really feel very stressed out. He just felt like in his natural environment. So I just had to kind of play the game. But versus like the Slippy kids, you can definitely like exploit those, I guess, mental disadvantages compared to the players with more experience, like SFAT for example. Like you're not gonna get SFAT on full tilt. That's just not gonna happen no matter what you're doing. Like you have to just play like good against him the whole set.
How about your set with Tyler Swift? That was a wacky one.
Mm, that was a really weird set because like that was a set I went into like just with the expectation, okay, I'm gonna try and play this matchup as well as possible, and then after like the second game when you just started SDing a bunch, I just switched my style over to put this person in like really hard to recover situations and see if I could make him SD over and over and over again. And like it ended up happening, and I felt kind of bad about it because it looked like his box is malfunctioning, but you gotta do what you gotta do to beat Pikachu for sure.
I think that was actually, it was so funny that the set turned out like that. Like, obviously, I felt bad, but us Marths have been struggling against Pikachu for so long. I think that was actually like the first time, like, I mean, I guess there's no like rankings now, but it's the first time that I can remember like a notable Marth beating another like top Pikachu player, other than like Duck's Marth beating Anther. Like that's the closest thing, and like PBU beating Axe in 2013. So I
Yeah,
think for like a 8-year stretch of just Marths getting sunned by Pikachu, I think it finally ended.
and Tyler Swift is up 1-0 on both me and Kadoran, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, it was definitely a lot. Like, going into that set, like, after the first game, I was kind of thinking to myself, oh, I'm going to lose. Like, this is the end of my loser's run. And then, like, the second game, like, reinvigorated me. And then I just played, like, versus Amita right before I played Tyler Swift, I was, like, sandbagging because I was like, lost to J Flex. This sucks. Like the whole set. So I just kind of like not really in it mentally. But like when I saw that I had a chance of beating Tyler Swift, I was like, oh, and like on that, like I got on that immediately and started like playing my best.
Game
I
three
feel like
versus Amita, you just ran him over. Game 3 to 4 is completely
yeah.
different than game 2.
I was like, okay, well, I don't really feel like losing to Amita, and like, I don't really lose to Puff if I'm like mentally in it at all. So I just kind of did my thing versus Puff for sure. But like versus Tyler, it was kind of, it didn't really feel like as much like me as much as like Tyler showing like a moment of weakness and it kind of inspiring me to start like trying again in losers. And I'm glad I did because I was after on Friday I was actually thinking about DQing from the tournament
Oh
because
damn.
I played a session with like OKP and Dreffen, and like I was winning at first and then like this like it just kind of like I started losing, and then I kind of started remembering that like versus like a lot of the top people I always win like the first couple games and then just start losing over and over and over again. So I was like I got like really, really like in my head about that, like that one friendly session. So I was like, maybe I should just drop out. Like I don't feel like I'm good enough to be here. And like I was just like, screw it, I'm just gonna do it anyway. And I'm pretty glad I did, honestly, because every
Yeah.
time I think about like quitting or dropping out, like some of the biggest breaks in my career happen like literally immediately afterwards. Like I was thinking about retiring right before Summit, and then I just went to Summit. I was like, okay. And I was thinking about dropping out, and then I went to Riptide, and I was like, okay, I got top 8. And I feel like the universe has this weird way of just rewarding you for not quitting and like sticking with things.
What'd you think of your sets with Panda and Bobby Big Balls? Anything
I
to
was
say about
actually
them?
really nervous going into my set with Panda because what I was thinking to myself is, oh god, Panda lives in Florida. He just plays Florida Mars all the time, and but Panda seemed a little bit kind of out of practice. His movement wasn't as tight as it needed to be, and I kind of noticed that relatively quickly. Like once I got it, because like before I played the set, I was really stressed out, and then like after I kind of got into my groove, I was like, okay, these are the weaknesses that have been presented to me. I'm going to exploit them like this, and then I just won. But like my mentality fighting Fox is that no matter how good you are, you can always lose to a Fox player. I think the same thing about Falcon too. So I just like always I'm always stressed out before fighting those characters, no matter like whether I'm favored or not. But actually, I feel like I shouldn't be so stressed out about Fox because my record is so like decent versus Fox. Like I have a lot of top 100 Fox wins, but I just don't. I don't want to lose to Fox ever. It's just a really bad feeling, honestly. Uh, I don't know. Whenever I'm losing to a Fox, I just think to myself, man, this guy thinks he's so smart. This guy thinks he's so good at the game.
Yeah,
It's
preach.
like, I want to show him. I don't know.
Yeah, don't get Edwin started.
Well, don't get me started on Falcon.
Oh, I mean,
That's the real.
he'll go. There's a 35-minute video. You don't have to go on about it.
Hey, it's not 35. It's 15.
What? Jesus Christ! Just felt 35 to me.
Wow. I'm glad I have your support.
But yeah, so you talked about Panda. What about Bobby? Bobby is someone who, like, I think he was one of the first people online to really have that like huge breakout performance. This was pre-Slippy, I think, even. And obviously, as like online became a thing that we saw for more than a few months, we saw like a kind of a group of people coalesce. I'd say like you, Kadorian, Ben, we all mentioned. I think Aklo as well. This group of people who I think they like really, really proved themselves. And I think Bobby kind of fell by the wayside in that sense, but still definitely someone who I think improved. How was your set versus him?
Mm, so it was kind of conflicting in my head going into it because there's two, I guess, main factors. The first is the history, which is like obviously like I have a huge advantage versus Bobby going based on history. But watching his set with like I think it was Android Zero, like it looked like he was just playing it absolutely out of his mind this tournament. And Bobby has come close, really close to beating me before, and he's taken a set off of me, I think. Um, so like I know that he can do it, but before the set, I saw that his glasses were fogging up, and that really like made me think, okay, Bobby's probably not going to be able to play his best because his glasses are fogging up. So I became significantly less nervous, and then I ended up winning. So there's like
You
a lot
kind
of
of like ran him over.
yeah, there's like a lot of little factors that determine the way I'm going to play versus someone. Like whether I think they're tilting, whether I think there's factors that could influence them to like play worse. Any like, it sounds really strange, but my game is like strangely land focused for like a player who came up on that play. It's like it's very I guess person to person.
So if you're about to play Logan, make sure your glasses don't fog up. That might be the best advice that we have.
It gives me confidence when I see that the other person's not gonna just play like out of their mind. I don't know.
I mean, hey, it all proved to work out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And I went into the Ben set thinking that Ben just choked this really important set that was really important to his career. He's probably going to be playing worse, so I just played super aggressive versus him.
yeah, I mean, I think your run proved that, like it kind of assuaged the idea that you might have been, you or people, like we mentioned, Kadoran or Ben, might have been like Slippy only people who would only do well on net play. I think that this run kind of proved that. Do you have anything else coming up? I know that you're going to we mentioned early SmashCon Fall Fest. Anything else this year that you have plans to go into?
Going to main stage.
Hell yeah!
I'm gonna try to get into Smash Summit 12 for sure. That's a really big goal of
Sounds like a
mine.
plan.
Um, I have some like regionals that I want to go to. Like there's one in North Carolina that I really want to go to in October. Ryobi invited me to a tournament that might be happening. Um, I don't know if I'm gonna go to that one just because New York is a really awkward place. If I'm trying to drive there, it's like 13 hours and a lot of money. If I'm trying to
Mm.
fly there, it's a lot of money for like a regional. I really only want to fly to majors. I don't really want to fly to a regional. I'm gonna try and go to SmashCon main stage. I'm gonna try and go to Summit. I'm going to play some regionals. That's about it, really.
Cool. I think it'll be sick. I think it's like a really good opportunity for you to show yourself. And I think that two major events into the year already, you've already done so. I want to talk about someone who we talked about Ben. Let's go to another ninth placer here. Someone who, if you are in the Melee Stats podcast Discord server, you've heard this name before, and if you aren't in the server, there's a chance that you might not have heard it. He's from Ohio. His name is Flash, and I think before this tournament, his stock for almost everyone was, I would say, generously worded, low, probably realistically worded. Like, he was probably not on people's radar. And going into this, I was, I'll say it, part of the group who seeded this event. And I do think that we talked about whether or not Flash, how high Flash should be seeded. And we came to the agreement that basically this is a player who we think is very good, but we need to see it be proven on a large stage. We really have only seen like 5-second Giphy cats of like neutral interactions versus top players, but proven on on a big stage it was. We saw Flash get 9th place, beating a lot of players who are in the up and coming category. He beat Juicebox, he beat Slow King, but I think the one that we got to talk about is the Ginger set. Were you? So I know you were playing. You obviously you were playing to get into top 8. Did you get to see any of the Ginger set, or did you watch it later? What was your history with that set?
Later that night, after I played through top 24, when I went home, I went to the VODs. I watched some of mine, and then I immediately went and watched every single Flash set that was uploaded. Because like I watched like one of them. I watched like I think one of the Flash versus Wizrip sets, and I was immediately in love with his Falco. So I just went and watched every single VOD of his. So yeah, I've watched every single set that Flash has played so far.
Yeah,
I've actually known about Flash for a really long time. I knew about Flash several years ago when we were all part of this like group for like really young Melee players. The goal is to just like get better. There's a lot of like really really young Melee players there. There's a lot of tri-state people too that ended up getting really really good. It's called like New Generation of Melee. It's like a private group. And my friend Django Fett from New York, he told me about Flash like like years and years ago. He's like, this guy's amazing. And I played him and I kind of beat him. I was like, he's all right. And then like it's like in this past year he's just gone crazy. When I was watching him, I was thinking like this dude is legitimately top 10 level at this game. Like this is some of the craziest like this is some of the best Falco player this is some of the best Falco play I've ever seen in my life. This just looks like perfect. This is like how Falco should be played.
Is he the best Falco in the world or the second best Falco?
He's the second best Falco.
I know Fiction will give him a run for his money for number 2.
Oh yeah, Fiction's Falco. I will say Fiction's Falco. I believe in it. I do believe that it's good. I've seen it. I've seen the results. But just like an eye test, his Falco is just like so much funnier than Flash's. Flash's Falco from like I said, from the 5-second Giphy cats I've seen, and from the sets that I've watched of his from Riptide, is just like so composed and so ready for everything. There was obviously so much thought going into all these like micro situations and how to plan around certain things. And I think like when we usually see runs to 9th place, or we see runs from up and coming players, like honestly, as good as Flash's run was and as impressive as it was, if you just want to look at it, take it down to brass tacks, the only top 100 player that he beat, I believe, is Ginger. But the way that he played and the way that he beat Ginger, it felt so affirming.
It felt repeatable.
Yeah.
Like it felt like he could do it multiple times.
Like there's a lot of people who've made it to 9th place at a 700 person tournament, and we're not about to be like Drunk Sloth is top 30 now, right? But I think that Flash, I'm not willing to say that this is just going to be a one and done. If we were able to see Flash at more events, I mean, I don't know, right? It's like it felt weird to say that he was, whatever should be seated with the top 50 players, should be seated with the top 100 players. It felt weird to say that before the event, and now it feels weird to say that he's like possibly top 30. Could be top 30, has potential to be top 30. But yeah, I mean, like it's really nuts just from 3 sets with a top 20 player, and a couple sets with people who are top 100 ish, top 100 level, and just like how much that really plays to the idea that I think he could do better, or just continue to do this well. Like, what do you, Edwin? You said it feels repeatable. Do you think we see this run again, or do you think do we see not only this being repeated, but do you think he'll top this?
It's so tough to say. I don't know. I think by the eye test, the comparison point that I immediately think of is would Frenzy be able to make this kind of run at his best? And I don't think it's too out of the question for someone like Frenzy to have him around that range, or even have someone like Albert around that range. So I think moving forward, again, it's just one event, but moving forward, I don't think you would be too crazy for viewing him in that, like, somewhere between like Albert, Bobby, Rocky, like Frenzy. Like, I think he's very clearly, just watching him play, like not just in those Jiffy Cats or whatever, or friendlies or whatever, but just like his play in tournament. Like, he's clearly around that level of player so I think those would be good comparison points for him.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy. Go on, Logan. I want to hear what your thoughts on this are.
I have very weird opinions on Flash. I think he's pretty easily going to top 8 his next major. I think Krito said it best. Uh, Flash just kind of talks like he's like 30 IQ higher than every single person at the venue. Like, he's one of the smartest people I've ever interacted with. He's really, like, I don't know. It's hard to describe, but I think he's significantly better than Rocky, Albert, like all of those players.
Oh,
Damn.
wow.
I genuinely think he's just going to like stomp some top 20 players.
Do you
next
think
time
he's
he
better
goes
than
to.
Magi as well?
Yeah, I think Magi is not really that good anymore.
Wow.
Magi
Wow.
would have to put a lot of effort in there to kind of reach that level again. Mainly because Magi's matchup spread is very uneven. Like, Magi is like ungodly amazing versus like Spaceys in particular. But versus like Floaties and like Marth, for example, she doesn't really like have the, I guess, the hours put into those matchups as she does in like the other matchups. Mainly because all of her like practice partners are kind of like Spaceys players. She plays a lot with Kalindi, Fiction, IBDW, this kind of people, and those players are generally Spaceys. So she drops sets to like Mog and stuff.
True.
But I think it's not like anything against Magi. I don't think Magi really like has like, I guess, the time put into the wide matchup spread to really be at that level yet.
So you're a big Flash believer then? You think it's
Yeah,
uphill?
I think Flash, like, just based on watching him play, is very easily my pick for second best Falco.
Damn, that's
Oh my
so
god!
nuts.
Already, this is like the first 2 stocks of a
I'm not
set,
ready
and you're
for
like,
this.
oh, Flash is the best. We can't let SP99
It's
can't
hard.
let SP get too much credit.
Yeah, I guess we got to shout out SP99 for this.
It's really hard
Church
to
of
describe.
SP99 on Patreon, I believe, is like a picture of Flash's face. So I think that there's definitely some, you know,
I think
some
Frenzy
help
is a
that
pretty
came in there.
fair comparison point, right? Like, I think I know Frenzy's EU, but I think that's fair. But Frenzy's getting a lot better, and he seems to be challenging Prof, if not. I mean, we'll see soon, but like Frenzy seems pretty legit, like, and similar style, like, approach to the game.
I think it's just like, it's almost really strange, but when like I just play someone or like watch them play, I can just kind of like, I guess, feel their skill level like in like a national stage. It's like when you've played the game enough, you kind of like, past the statistics, past the history, past anything, like you can just kind of feel when players are that good. Like, I put all my marbles on Crudo at Riptide just because I think Crudo is top 30. I think Crudo is amazing.
I feel like there's so many people in Florida that could qualify for that. That state just has so many random people who are nasty.
Yeah,
That, like,
I think
nobody
Crudo
nobody
is definitely like the standout from that state, in my opinion.
Did you see
So-
him versus Android Zero? That was a wild set.
I did not watch that set.
There's a moment in the last stock where Crudo threw out the chain by accident, and
Uh-huh.
like a knee from Android Zero was either gonna kill him or send him off stage for like a rinse and repeat edge guard. And Android Zero, like I think he just like freaked out, so he just retreated to ledge and hack stashed whatever as Crudo had the chain out.
Jeez.
That's so
But yeah,
funny.
my decisions for the fantasy bracket on who I wanted to like pick were like not based on any sort of statistics or like anything like that. It was just like these are the players that I think are the best. I just like and it was super top heavy too. Like basically what I did was I picked like all the players that I thought were guaranteed top 8. And then I just picked like with my remaining money, all the people that I thought were way lower cost value. Like Crudo, I thought was incredibly underpriced.
Did you have
Um,
Flash on your team?
I did not have Flash on my team. I was told about
The
Flash and
second best Falco. Wow.
I was going to bet on Flash and but like I got lazy because I couldn't find Flash in the list of people. It wasn't in like the first like 4 pages and I
Funny.
just gave up.
Well, I guess you didn't need to look for him. You seem to find success. You know, a success that I myself have never gotten. My best showing was second place at the Big House 6 fantasy.
Yeah,
So
it's pretty
you
fun.
have
I've never done a
you've eclipsed
fantasy
me.
bracket before. It's
Damn,
pretty
one and
fun.
done.
Yeah,
Just
I think I'm
a true
retiring.
talent. Hey, if we're talking about Flash as a breakout, you're the true breakout of this tournament. Um, but before we're going to talk about, obviously there's a lot of players who did have really big breakout performances. Before we do so, I want to talk about right before we do that, just one last thing. Flash is someone who you say you think that top 8 out of the next major is likely. You know, you also mentioned earlier in the show about how when it comes to these up and coming players, it is like the atmosphere is against them. You know, it's a big event. It's a lot of people there. It's a huge stage, and it's something that a lot of these up and coming players are not used to. Flash, not only not someone who we saw have success on land before the pandemic, but not someone who we saw have success on Slippy, someone who is more of a practice person rather than a tournament person. Do you think what are your feelings on Flash's composure? And do you think that he will be able to like replicate that if he was a high level of composure? What do you think about that?
When I watch him, it just doesn't feel like he's nervous at all. There's no like little like positioning errors. He's very like deliberate. Um, it's almost like strange. It's like he doesn't have any nerves. It's really weird watching him because like there's players that visibly get nervous. Like you can watch like me kind of rock back and forth. Uh, and then there's like players that like get nervous in their play but don't physically get nervous, like Ben. And he didn't really seem to have either of those. So it was really like it looked like he had just been playing the game for like 19 years. It's
Yeah,
really
there
weird.
was a lot of situational awareness and just like when something would pop up, just from I mean I was only able to watch his set versus Ginger, so feel free to correct me on anything. But what I saw was just like if a situation popped up, he was just like, oh, I know what to do here, and you know whether or not he would do that in a situation where it worked out for him. There was always just like a supreme air of confidence in whatever he did. Like he was
There's
so
something
ready for everything.
there's something strange about the way he plays, and like I couldn't put my finger on it at first, and then like I figured out what it was later, like thinking on it, and it's that like his reaction times are like inhuman. I don't understand like how he's able to play like that unless he's like reading the opponent 24/7 because like when like he lasers at them, if they like roll in or do anything to like go in or like away, he like reactively turns the next laser around to continue pressure and like he does it at the perfect like low laser spacing reactively, and unless he's like reading roll ins or something on a consistent basis, it's just like I don't understand like how he does that. It just doesn't like compute in my head how he's able to like just like so he'll go like laser, laser, and then he put a roll in, and as he's jumping up for the next like laser, you think he'll forward laser at them to like overshoot or something, and he just turns the laser around and continues pressure the other way. It's so weird. And then the other thing I think about Flash, I think the biggest weakness of Flash is that his punish game doesn't seem like uh fully there yet. Like I think this is like actually I think Magi is the person that he could take some punish game notes from, because I think Magi has a very very developed, very interesting like punish game, and I think punish is really where Flash needs the most work. His neutral and composure is like amazing. It's actually just like clearly top 10 in my opinion. But his punish is just not completely there yet, and that's really why I think he lost to Wizroom. Like I think like he just wasn't getting the maximum amount out of his openings, and Wizroom was. Even though like Flash was just winning neutral a lot. Just that punish differential. That's kind of what I do. I lose neutral a lot, and then I just like my punish is so good that I just win anyways. So I'm like kind of the opposite of Flash. I kind of admire him. He's super big brained. Um, but yeah, that's what I think about Flash. I think his punish game needs a little bit work. I think everything else is just where it needs to be. It's thought out. It's developed. It's crisp. The reaction times are amazing.
Well,
Uh,
if we're talking breakout players at this event, obviously Flash is the headliner. Um, I want to give a shout out to actually one of the more underrated runs at this tournament, coming from Kem. Kem, after losing in pools early to Wooly, I believe a Michigan Peach and Falco player, he went on like a massive run where he beat like Scarzo, Preeminent, Free Palestine, and Reeve all in a row to
Rest in
make
peace,
it
the
back to top.
Midwest.
Yeah, to make it
yeah, it's
to
wild.
make it back to top 24, and eventually lose there to Gatsu. But that was actually one of the more like like low key ridiculous runs at this tournament that I noticed. Was there anyone or any set you want to talk about?
Yeah. So I have a point, and before we get to that point, I just want to quickly say we can circle back to this at some point. Uh, what an incredible performance from Secrets to beat Axe! Like,
Mm-hmm.
just a thing that every now and then you'll see people. I mean, every single major you'll see people do this. They'll be like, "Oh, Wizzy ain't ready for my boy blank," and then that their boy gets steamrolled. So when I saw like, "Oh yeah, you guys got to watch out for Secrets versus Axe," I was just thinking, "Oh, just another like person from Colorado who's just hyping up their boy." But there was some real truth to that, and we saw Secrets beat Fable. I think that was really, really impressive. Someone who I don't think was really necessarily, Riptide was a huge tournament for like teeing people up for success. I think there were a lot of people who were up and comers who had a lot of eyes on them. I don't think Secrets was one of them necessarily, and I think that they were able to find success regardless. Um, but yeah, I want to mention a bunch of players because I just mentioned that Riptide was a tournament where a lot of eyes are on a lot of up and coming players. I think the natural inclination for people is to look at Riptide and be like, is Slippy real? We watched Summit 11, and we saw that the Aklo, Logan, yourself, Kadoran, we saw that they are bona fide players, right? But then the question goes, okay, so that might be the top echelon. Let's throw a Ben in there as well. Maybe those are the outliers just because they are so good at the game. Let's see how the players a little further down, players outside the top 25, 30, whatever you want to call that level. And I think that the kind of interesting thing that we saw was that there were breakout performances. But I'm going to read you the list of people. So I'm not going to mention Kadoran. I'm not going to mention Logan. I'm not going to mention Ben. We talked about those players as being kind of a little bit of a tier above. I'm going to mention the people who got top 16 at this event who were not top 100. Flash, we mentioned. Crudo, Wally. Are these players who you would hear that and be like, oh yeah, some real Slippy kids right there, right? Some
Yeah,
real
definitely not Wally. Not
some
no.
real Slippy grinders.
Definitely not Crudo
Or
either.
like Juicebox is someone who got 17th. You
Juicebox is
start to get
going
some people who are more
crazy.
Slippy grinders. But I think that the cool thing about this is the people who got top 16, who I just mentioned, Flash, Crudo, Wally, that's not the epitome of like, oh yeah, this is like a real Slippy kid. It shows this kind of cool thing where like Flash, notably entered like one Slippy tournament, got 65th. Wally, very notable Slippy and monitor hater, And then you had Krudo, who was entering net play events, but wasn't like the, enter 6 a week and do really well, all of them. Maybe a more low key player. I don't think any of these players were considered people who popped off on Slippy. I think it's like really cool that the prevailing idea was like that a bunch of Slippy players are going to be super good. But not only did we not see, not only are these players not Slippy players, they're not established top 100 players as well. They're people who would just continue to work at this, continue to stay good at the game. And I think it's super cool for Melee itself that we are able to see breakout performances from people who we have not seen a lot of, both formerly on LAN and in Slippy. I think that's like so cool, and that's so good for the state of the game that the level of breakout players can just continue to come from nowhere.
Mm. I think Krudo is like one of those players that was like always that good. He just like couldn't, just didn't really travel at all. He doesn't really go to stuff. Krudo's been good for a really long time. Krudo's always just been really good. But Krudo is strange because like he doesn't really play the game very much. He just kind of watches videos all the time. He has like a very like he has a very good work ethic and he like studies the game a lot, but he doesn't really like play it. Like whenever I ask him to play, he doesn't. He's always like, "I'm not really playing right now," or like whenever other people ask him to play, he doesn't really play the game too much. He's just a hardcore studier for sure. I really admire like kind of Krudo's work ethic. And in terms of like other players, I was very surprised at Juicebox's placing. I was like, what? I did not think Juicebox was at that level. I have not played Juicebox in a long time, but really, hasn't Juicebox been around forever?
Yeah,
Like, wasn't
Juicebox has
Juicebox was
always
like MDVA PR for like a long time?
yeah, Juicebox has always been like my annual pick for like outside of top 100 Sheik player who will finally break out.
Yeah.
And every year at a national, he would just like lose to a Fox and Falco player and get 97th or 65th like every year while maintaining his status on the MDVA PR. It always felt like a matter of time before Juicebox would get like a big tournament, but it just never happened until now. I think his run was kind of interesting too. He beat Free Palestine and he beat Mog, for whatever. I think their local trend typically goes in Juicebox's favor, so that wasn't too surprising. But I guess beating Free Palestine and Sheik Ditto is a pretty good showing for him.
Yeah, for sure. Juicebox, definitely one of those players who kind of perennially outside the top 100. You mentioned how like you always call him to break into the top 100. I think that's one of those cool things about Melee is that like every year there's just this player who we've known for so long, and it's just like, oh, okay, this player, they're pretty good, they're on their PR, maybe not a threat to get top 100, and then just 1 year at all, like they won't even significantly like get better. It'll just all kind of coalesce into a performance that really shows it. I think that's how I kind of viewed Polish for a while. Polish before he ended up making the top 100, I was just like, oh yeah, he's good, really good PR player, definitely really someone who's like really solid. And then we just see a year where he places all together and ends up getting like 63rd or whatever. I before the pandemic, I was like, yeah, that could just be Doc Lobster. Doc Lobster could just like become a player who you say, yeah, he's good, maybe not top 100 level, and then a year of results before you like look back at the end of the year, you're like, damn, I didn't realize it, but he's like 70th in the world.
The thing that like I actually think being like top echelon top player is literally just having that happen like a couple of times.
Yeah.
Like I think what being a top player is you get to a certain skill level, then you have the means to attend tournaments, and then you get lucky enough to have your breakout performance. Then you reach like I guess you're like top 100 status now, and now to break into top 50, you have to meet those three conditions again, and basically like the best players are a combination of factors. They have the means, they have the kind of almost like the bracket luck to get the major performance, and then they have the skill level to actually like execute that bracket run. So there's definitely a lot of factors that really goes into like kind of getting from level to level in this game, other than just like raw skill. Like for example, like I know like In my experience, I feel like my raw skill is at like this like high level, but I just kept getting like I just been getting like consistently like weird brackets, like having to play axe like round one of like everything, or like just Pikachu's and that kind of thing. And like really, what it takes is just like okay, like this is my day. Like I got my bracket luck, my skill is all in place, and like everything just kind of comes together into that big run. So I think there are a lot of factors into being a top player, like and like reaching that rank up. Because like why I say you just need that one breakout performance is because when you beat those players, you get this like level of natural confidence that like you can just do it again.
Hmm.
So like once you get that one breakout run, generally you aren't just gonna like never ever be able to repeat it or get close to it ever again. If you keep practicing and keep like continuing to like work at it, like you're probably gonna get a couple more like in that same category. But like getting the first one is the hardest. So like for me, my absolute hardest part in this game was getting my first top 100 win, and then when I got my first top 100 win, I just got like 50 in like a year. But like I could just it's like these like mental barriers that like you set upon yourself. Like you have to like accomplish something once, but once you do that, you can just accomplish it over and over and over again. That's kind of how I feel about like leveling up in this game. Is you get the luck to accomplish something once, and then the skill is being able to replicate it.
That's a really interesting way to put it because I think that there's a lot of thoughts about what it takes to be top 100, and I think the more you get into melee, um, I wouldn't say it's like being disillusioned, but I think like you're open to the idea that the skill in melee is just like so wide open. Um, and I think that that's like true for any game at a competitive level. Is that like the top 100 players? There's a ton of people who could be that. But I think for melee, it's really interesting just because it's such a refined game after 20 years of play. And I think you're totally right. Like I think that there's a lot of players who we've seen do really well for a really long time, and then it's just the right bracket, and then they're set. It's for you get start to get better seeds, of course, that's part of it, but it's also just like the confidence of it and the play naturally come together. I think that's like a really interesting point that I don't think people talk about enough, and 100% I think you're like spot on when you mention the ability to go to tournaments. Like for any up and coming player, I think the biggest thing if you're talking about wanting to make the top 100 is just the ability to go to X number of majors, like 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. It's just like so important for a top player, for an emerging top player to just show up and be there. And I think that going into this event, Riptide, what was kind of really interesting is that, yeah, there was the top players who we wanted to see how that turned out. And I think that was cool. I think that was fun. Um, but there was a ton of people who we were able to see so much more of through Slippy, just because like the barrier of entry to going to a tournament was just so low for Slippy, right? A lot of the stuff was free. There was obviously paid stuff, but if you were someone who weren't like maybe you're like Ben's kind of in a little bit of a remote area. Ben's obviously a super young player as well. I think he's like only 18 right now.
I think he's 19, but he's a younger 19 than me.
Okay, never mind. It's not impressive. No, but yeah, if he's 18 or 19, it's just like and yourself as well. Like even though you are someone who attended a decent number of majors, it's just like being able to enter so many tournaments and have that like be in the forefront of people's minds, be able to have so many results. I think is so important. Even if when a top 100 eventually comes out, we probably won't see any online results used. I think that like the ability to have people learn about players outside of like whoever places 17th at one major. I think that's a really good thing for the player pool. Um, that being said, it's super cool to see Riptide have a lot of players who did really well in Slippy do well. If you want to look at like the 17th, 25th players, we have people like JFlex, who obviously has been top 100 before, but it really did well.
JFlex leveled up like the past like couple months really hard.
Yeah, online and locally in New Jersey, just doing really well. Harry Pogger, I think, is someone who we've seen a lot of, who I probably wouldn't have called
Harry
before.
Potter 3-0'd Koyashi. That caught me completely.
Yeah, I don't get that.
I did not expect him to 3-0 them, and that was a rough tournament for Koyashi. Harry Potter and Mott Money sending them home.
Yeah. I think this is such a super cool event to be able to see so many players from so many different, I don't know, paths of Melee. I don't know the way to say that where it doesn't sound dumb, but yeah, it's really cool to see this. What's up, Edwin?
I need to mention the most ridiculous run to 33rd that no one is talking about. I want to talk about someone called Big Pika, a
Yes,
play
Oh
please.
yeah, Big Pika.
a player I had heard of a couple times over quarantine, but never actually seen them play. But God, look at this run. Pleba, Ferris wheel, tempo, blue right after blue sent Michael out of the tournament into losing to Dreffen for 33rd. What a ridiculous run. I had never heard of this player before. And and,
Big
and I
Pika's
know a lot
a
of
puff player,
players.
right?
Yeah. Puff 3-0'd Blue right after Blue eliminated Michael. What a
Yeah.
ridiculous
Also,
result.
hey, you're talking about Blue like Blue's a household name. Blue's another like beating Michael. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That it yeah, I mean, this tournament is something where it's one of those, this is like such a great tournament to go back to open majors. I think Summit 11 was like the perfect thing to bring back land melee. So exciting. And then Riptide is such a great thing to bring back open bracket melee because I think the top 4 was great. I think the top 8 was great. Top 16 has a lot of interesting things. Like the further and further you go down, there's always just more interesting stuff. Even if it's like Michael getting 65th, even that far in bracket is still so interesting to see. Yeah, I think that's such a great point. Like, dude, we could probably do another episode about this bracket if we wanted. The fact that we barely mentioned secrets and really didn't mention Axe losing round 1 pools to getting what, 5th, just shows like just how crazy this tournament was.
The I actually think that like I mean mentioned that like talking about the old guard of melee, I think this tournament and Summit both like made me confident that the new players are going to overthrow the old guard relatively soon. Like it's a really strange take considering that the old guard was like the top placing at like these tournaments, but just like watching the set, I get the feeling that like a lot of the players are like that are like have this like okay, how do I word this? The players on the net play era have the skill to just beat those old guard players, and they are now gaining the confidence and the experience to actually take the full set like all the way. And that's kind of what like I'm witnessing is that like the sets that like new players are winning versus like the old guard, these sets don't look like flukes anymore. They look like repeatable like sets that like just could happen over and over and over again. They don't look like that player just got really really lucky or like cheesed out the victory by catching someone off guard. Like no, these new players actually look like they can just repeat the accomplishments over and over and over again. And I say that like just kind of like looking at the sets because I take like a stance in melee that like melee will generally just filter the players that are putting in the work for the players that are not putting in the work. Just like over time, like as time progresses, the new guard will simply just overtake the old guard just due to the
Mhm.
work they're putting in. And not to say that the old guard isn't putting in like the work because obviously they are, but the work ethic and the efficiency of which new players are like putting into the game has not really been seen before. Because when you think of a game like melee, I actually think the skill level you need to be like top 20 in melee is like it's so much more doable than a game like I guess like League of Legends or like even just like a sport. I think that like if you like the hardest part about being really 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 good at melee is the work ethic and the discipline. I don't think it's actually just like I think you can like literally just like if you have a method to just studying your VODs and working on like concrete noticeable things like every single day, then you will just like naturally just ascend to the top 20 over time. And like the players that are like falling out of it are the ones who are not following that routine. It's like when Lod talks about his golden pathway or whatever. I think like literally the players that are just like winning are just the ones who are doing that. And the players at the top are just the ones who are doing it the most. I don't think like Melee is one of those games where like you just need like a ton of just natural starting talent and like absurd like mechanical skill or anything like that. Like stuff that like I think Melee is a game that like anyone can be like top level at, and I think it's a really cool thing about Melee.
All right, so Logan, is a good transition to the final segment of our show, which we go over patron and fan questions for you. And I have to say, the patron questions for this episode not very good, but we have a few that we wanted to point out. So I'll ask you the first one from patron Yamham. How do you feel about people comparing your Marth to Mutikings? Did you study much when you were getting good?
When someone compares my Marth to Music King, what I feel is deep joy because I I study like Music King was the player that I studied more than anyone else. I absolutely love Music King's Marth. I think Music King's like one of my favorite players, if not like my favorite player overall. I still think Dreffin's my favorite player of all time, but Music King, Dreffin, those like players are really all up
Quite
there.
some picks right there. How do you think your
I love all those
playstyle
weird
compares?
intelligent cheek mains. I don't know.
That's why you became a Marth main. How do you how do you think your Marth compares to Mewtwo specifically? I guess.
mm, I think my movement and my like micro spacing is better, but I think his like consistency in following like plans and his ability to like edge guard like these situations 100% of the time and like the level of experience he has just makes him like a much better player than me. But like it's weird because like I think I have aspects of my Marth like that I play that are just better than everyone else in the world, but like I'm like deficient in some areas that other Marths are like much better than me at. Like for example, planning and edge guards are two areas that I struggle to do consistently. And like generally, if you watch the sets that I drop versus players, almost like I would say like 70 to 80% of them are due to me like missing edge guards. When I'm playing well, the main difference you notice is that I hit edge guards. That is like the big thing, and people aren't living to 180 every stock versus me. But like Music King, like just like gets those edge guards like every single time, and I think that's a skill that is really underrated because being consistent at aspects like edge guarding and those punishes and stuff like that are it's not easy, and it's so dependent on how you're feeling and your mentality and that kind of thing. But like no matter like what the day is, Music King will hit those edge guards. And I really think that's a skill that I admire. I admire that level of consistency.
Yeah, that's cool. Speaking about consistency, it is cool to see how you approach that. The similarities to Mewtwo, considering Mewtwo was famously a player who was very matchup dependent in terms of what characters he would go. There's actually, a lot of characters who we haven't seen a lot of high level Marth versus, Sheik, Mark. Marth Wahlberg, is that something? Sorry. We haven't seen a lot of high level Marth versus Falcon from him. Like, there's a lot of things that we haven't seen. So I think it is cool that you're able to recognize the similarities and then also um, take that into your game plan in a way that he was not able to. We have another Marth question. This is from Dr. Lame. And Dr. Lame is going to ask about what are the most important things for a PR level Marth to implement with goals of reaching top 100. So you already kind of mentioned what you think is necessary for top 100. Any more specifics that you want to go into that? Maybe about Marth specifically?
I'm actually thinking about writing a guide to becoming a top player from like start to finish. But I think what really like okay, so going from like mid level to high level is all about um how like consistent and solid your movement is. So like can you get from point A to point B efficiently and like without going further than you intend to or shorter than you intend to. So to do that, for example, the strategy I took was going on Pokemon Stadium and like wave dashing to little like aspects of like the ground, like the designs on the ground. Like, so I'd say, okay, today my practice is going to be can I go from like the inner ring of the Pokeball to like the yellow triangles on Pokemon Stadium? Can I wave dash from that point to that point? Can I dash dance in between those 2 points without leaving them? And I also mix like constant shield stopping into my gameplay. I don't think that's something that like the other Mars are doing a lot of is that like constant use of shield stop to control drift really really well. That's actually what Axe said to me after we played our set. He was like, "Your drift is like absolutely absurd levels. You just need to get like the experience and that kind of thing." Um, but I think really really getting your movement from point A to point B without going any further or any shorter is important. And then once your movement is to the point where you're able to execute it consistently, like almost all of the time, from there it becomes a matter of building a series of game plans for every single character, and then kind of reworking them as you get new information, as you get your VODs, etc. I think that's probably the most efficient way to improve. Is having like base plans for every matchup, and then just changing them as you get new information, like reworking them over time constantly. But like, really, the key to being a top player is to have a solid base that you work off of, and only make small adjustments to that plan as you play different players. Because what a lot of people do is they like go from one game to another playing completely differently, and they're not able to get like efficient progress out of that because they're not like learning what is working, what's not. Because so many things could go wrong in one game plan, and so many things could go wrong in other game plans. It could take forever for you to fix all those like little mistakes if you're constantly switching what you're doing up. So like I want to have very very steady plans. I think watching Wizrobe play was what helped me get better a lot. Like trying to understand what makes Wizrobe really, really good at the game, because he's probably the player that I've watched the most of. I don't really watch the Mars as much as I watch Wizrobe play a lot. Specifically because I think his level of consistency and following a plan is what you need to just win over and over and over again.
It's really cool
But
that you're able to see that in a player who, I'm not sure if this would be an interesting thing to talk about to some people who are, also top echelon players, also maybe up and coming players. But I think it's really interesting for you to talk about how like there's a lot that you see in Dreffen, or there's a lot that you see in Wizrobe or something like that. Obviously, very different characters than Marth. That's like a really interesting thing, and I think it's obviously shown its worth. We've seen a lot of great things from you, so that's super cool to see.
So Logan, I have another question for you. This one is from Melee Stats patron Rich. You went into this a little bit earlier, talking about specifically the more like external factors, like just preparing yourself on the big stage, being mentally ready, like making sure you're not nervous. But without giving any of the secret sauce away, Rich wants to know, what's your plan to beat Axe next time?
Um, so I have now made OKP into my Pika slave basically. And that I am taking everything I learned from my Axe VODs and everything I learned from playing him, and then immediately going in DMs and telling OKP everything he needs to do to play like Axe. And then just trying to practice with OKP as much as possible by making him play like Axe as much as possible. So that's one of the things I'm doing. The other thing is that I'm working on my like ability to stay composed under pressure. So like not just F smashing 24/7 when I get stressed out. You'll notice in both of my sets versus Axe, whenever I lose a close game, the next game I immediately just start F smashing constantly. And that's because like I get too antsy for the win. So I really think all the factors I need to beat Axe are there. A lot of it is external in that I just need to learn to not crack under the pressure and start playing like straying from the plan, because the plan I had was working so well. Like you watch that first game versus Axe, like I was up the whole time. The only time that like I lost was at the very end when he zeroed to death me because I started playing anxious because he's at last stock 100% and I wanted to win. So like if I play where like I focus on just winning like the interactions and not just like trying to force the victory when it's not time to win yet, then I will be able to actually take those games that I'm getting really, really close to winning and then just not winning. Like the third game too, I was up 2 stocks to 1, got super anxious for the win, dropped it.
I think just judging by um, watching the games, being a spectator of like all levels of play for various years, that is one of the things that I kind of look into when seeing a player who's going to really break out. Like obviously, like a top win is really good, but I also think like just seeing a top level player have really really close sets and just barely lose um, is really good data, because if they're able to consistently do that, you're able to know that they have what it takes to win. It's just they have what we talked about earlier, that there might be some sort of nerves, might be not being used to that situation. I remember specifically like seeing Bananas just barely lose to Swedish Delight, just barely lose to Mike Hayes, and I was like, okay, I think Bananas is going to be really good. Obviously turned out to be like the highest debut on a top 100 that we ever seen. Went from just outside of 100 like 102 to 19th. So yeah, I do think that there's a lot of merit in like looking at players who are able to do a lot of the right stuff and then maybe maybe not able to complete it, but I think like that means that 90% of it's already done. So I think that's a really good point, and I think that for anyone who's willing to watch sets like that, I think that there is a lot to be learned.
You know what's really funny? I think there's gonna be like 3 players this year that debut higher in the top 100, like on their first top 100 than Bananas.
You think there's going to be people who are
Wow.
like top 15 who debut?
Yeah, I think Darwin will be there. I
He
can see.
was he was already he was ranked 70th. So it's got to be you. Got to be you.
Oh,
Got to be Ben,
or
Aklo,
Flash.
Yeah,
I
you Ben
Flash.
and Aklo.
I think Aklo,
Yeah, oh my god,
Flash,
and Flash. Yeah.
Aklo,
Flash
Flash,
going to debut at 9th.
Ben when he stops playing nervous, me when I stop playing nervous. They keep canceling every top 100 that I have a chance of getting on. So I think on
It's very
MPGR
personal.
2023 when I'm about to retire and I've won like 20 majors when they create the first MPGR that I'm finally on, um, then I will finally
We'll make sure
debut.
that we'll make sure that there's no MPGR until you're going to be first place. We'll
Yes,
make sure you
basically.
debut at 1.
I want to debut at 1. That would be the most like crazy thing ever.
Well, we'll make it happen. I'll rig this. P-Test,
Yeah.
P-Test won't realize.
Please no top 100 yet. Please no top 100.
That's fun. Yeah, dude, that actually wait. Let me give one more question super quick. This is from Teslick. This is from Melee Stats patron Teslick. What is your favorite color?
My favorite color is indigo.
Oh,
Like,
very specific.
Kind of like a purplish blue. Or like a bluish purple, I guess. Like the kind of in between blue and purple. I don't like really like saturated like bright purples. I like those kind of muted purples, and I like those kind of ashy purples. I actually have like a list somewhere on my computer of all of my favorite hex code colors.
Oh, that's
So
sick.
like,
That I actually I like that a lot. I keep a Google sheet of all the hex codes for the roles in the Melee Stats Discord. I'll have to get my eyes on that at some point. Yeah, I think
You know what's funny?
You're like a perfect mix between me and Edwin. Blue's my favorite color. Edwin, you wanna?
Yeah, mine is a
reveal?
tie. Yeah, mine is a tie between black and purple.
Yeah, hold on. I'm gonna actually find you right now. I'm gonna find you to the hex code, my exact favorite color. Give me just 1 second.
Okay. While you're looking that up, we'll send that over. I'll read the hex code out to people and they can imagine what it looks like. Before we end the show, there's a little segment that we want to do. You know, we talk about Melee all the time, but we're trying to introduce the idea that we're not solely Melee beings, right? Like we have lives ostensibly outside of Melee.
Per se, debatably.
Debatably. But yeah, like it's a good opportunity to talk about what we have been up to recently that might not be focused on Melee. Think we have not had a name for this segment. It's been one of our segments that we've never named. Edwin, should we name it at any point? We can call it like Touching Grass.
I don't think we should name it Touching Grass, but basically what we do is we like to remind the viewers that we do things outside of Melee and our regular people also. So we just kind of take like 2 or 3 minutes, each of us, to talk about whatever is on our mind or whatever we've been up to outside of Smash.
Here, I'll start you off while you're picking up that hex code. So this past weekend, I traveled to the Midwest. I did not go to Riptide in Sandusky, Ohio. I went to Chicago, Illinois. I went to see the Pitchfork Music Fest at Union Park in Chicago with former Melee Stats podcast guest Jim Jam Flimflam, friend of the show. It was an amazing experience. It was the first festival that I've went to on that type of scale. I went to a few smaller ones in the greater Philadelphia region, but yeah, very fun to be able to travel for something like that. A pretty good experience, all things considered. And I mean, I saw some really great shows. I am in the picture. I mean, you can spot me in the crowd wearing a Slippy hat in the pictures from the Dogleg show. They were amazing. And I also want to shout out another artist called Eve's Tumor. They were very, very good. I was in the mosh pit for that, and my entire body was like covered in dirt. But very well worth it. I would recommend Eve's Tumor's 2 albums to anyone who is interested in kind of like a reconstruction of what rock can be, kind of this idea of like looking at the just the like general concept of like rock stardom, and coming at it from just different perspectives. So I would say yeah, check out Dogleg, check out Eve's Tumor, check out Chicago. The Bean was super fun. And not really my recommendation for, or my touching grass moment, or whatever we want to call it, for the week. But I will say that Norm Macdonald unfortunately did just pass away. Someone who I have not been keeping up with in the past few years, but when I was like a teenager, I thought he was so incredibly funny. I really respect the guy for being able to just he was not always someone who was saying the funniest things. He was very hit or miss, but I think that there's like some fun and some respect to be had in a comedian who would just be really, really willing to bomb, if it also meant that, you know, when he didn't bomb, it ended up being hilarious. So I guess Norm Macdonald and the various artists of Pitchfork Music Fest 2021 will be my my little touching grass segment for the week.
All right. I'm just gonna reaffirm that I don't want to name the segment "Touching Grass," but I did catch you that. I'm not gonna do that. But I will say something I've been pretty busy with over the last week. I've rediscovered my love for the Hitman games. I got the new trilogy for PlayStation. It's been pretty fun. I played Blood Money as a kid, really liked it casually. Got into Hitman. Have been really having a blast. I just got the third game today. Finished the first two. I will say the craziest thing in the world about getting into Hitman was randomly finding out that Atrioc, yes, the former Twitch employee, Chic player from NorCal, Atrioc is an incredible Hitman player and holds or held the world record for Silent Assassin suit only playthroughs of the
That is
entire
wild.
trilogy
I
of Hitman 3 or the entire trilogy or whatever. I actually DM'd him and I was like, "What the hell? Like you're the best Hitman player in the world? I knew you streamed video games. I knew you streamed Hitman at one point. I didn't realize you were legit. Wow, Atrioc, that's crazy." And he was like, "Oh yeah, I love Hitman."
This is how Edwin becomes a Twitch star.
I just randomly Atrioc is an incredible Hitman player. How was I out of the loop on this? That's my catch up for the week.
Logan, I want to hear about what's been going on in your world. Obviously, it doesn't have to be just this past week, but considering you're known so much as it's like a really Melee diehard, it'd be interesting to hear what's going on. Before you say that, I want to read this hex code out for all the fans. Octothorpe 2E2839. So every fan who's listening on a podcast app or watching this on YouTube, or hey, watching this right now, just close your eyes and imagine what that looks like. But yeah, what's been going on?
I wrote 300 pages of poems, and I'm planning on trying to get some of them published. I just write like a lot constantly nowadays. And I wrote my first article for Team Liquid. It's going to be
Nice.
dropped soon. I finished it a while ago. Basically, we've been waiting on since then is like trying to get the graphic for it, because like the person at Team Liquid that's in charge of the graphics got like sick, so they're on medical leave right now. So we've been waiting for them. So I'm probably gonna start working on my second article relatively soon. I actually think for that I'm gonna do a Riptide recap, but there's a player I want to focus on, and that's SFAT, because I really want to write a lot about SFAT because he's one of the most interesting players in the world to me. And in terms of other things I've been doing, I've been getting better at guitar.
Nice.
I have been painting a decent amount. I've got a lot of paintings on my Twitter, but I've been doing kind of some for myself recently. And Tales of Arise came out, so once I get that installed, I'm going to start trying to play that. I've been really busy right now with school in particular, so I haven't been streaming as much. I haven't streamed in a while. I got to stream recently and it was pretty fun, but I do like so much schoolwork every day. It's hard to be able to do anything else. My semester this year is absolutely brutal. I got like neuroscience, statistics, foreign language, some other stuff. It's a little bit it's a little
What
bit
foreign
wild.
language?
I'm taking Spanish. I was taking Japanese, but then it was like it's too hard on top of all that other stuff. So I just chose Spanish because I already know it basically.
Really? I dude, this like Thursday, I was like, I should learn Spanish more than I know, which is just like I took it for 1 year, senior year of high school, while I was already taking like year 6 of French or whatever. I just took it as kind of like a fuck off class. Um, and some of it stayed in there. But really all I remember is like Autopista and Aspidadora. There's actually one really funny time where I was in the car with one of my friends coming back from the airport, and he was speaking in Spanish to the driver. I was like learning stuff about my friend, even though like I don't speak Spanish. I was able to pick this up. I was like, "You went to Germany and you didn't tell me." So yeah, I would like to learn Spanish. Hey, maybe in a year from now, I think we already promised that we're going to be buff. We're going to be in a year from now. We're going to be buff, and we're going to be doing waiting for a game in perfect fluent Spanish
Hmm.
and buff.
Um. Yeah, at Riptide, I was given a reminder that I'm supposed to be weightlifting. I'm gonna be weightlifting a little bit more. I was doing it before, but then like COVID kind of hit, and then I was like, okay, I want to focus on melee for a little bit, so I stopped really doing it as much. I kind of ran out of time with school and melee and all that other stuff. But I need to get back on the grind for that because honestly, I'm weightlifting because I think it would be really funny to see me really ripped. Like I just think it would be like really comedic to
Hey, if
be like
that's what
really
it
buff.
takes.
Because like I don't know, I just think it'd be hilarious for me in particular to just be absurdly like jacked.
I,
uh
I do like the idea of getting jacked for the bit. Just
yeah. It's
it's
literally
a
for
pretty
a
good bit.
bit. um and in terms of like I want to start eating a little bit healthier too because like Bobby Siege, SFS coach, has been like really getting on to me about the benefits of like healthy eating, and he's been sending me like recipes for stuff I could make. It's pretty easy. So yeah, Bobby Siege, I need. I promised him that I would make and try his spaghetti recipe, so I have to I have to get on that grind and try that.
Nice. Well, yeah, I personally could not wait for waiting for game 2023. After we discussed your first major win, and we're all buff and it's all in Spanish, so I cannot wait to have you back on for that. Until then, you have been a wonderful guest. This has been great. I've been so excited to hear about. You're one of the players who I think that a lot of people have, seen do really well and associated with Slippy, and it's been really interesting to get to talk to you. And man, Riptide, yeah. I mean, like honestly, we could do another 2 hours on that tournament. So much to talk about. So I'm so appreciative that you were able to come on and do that with us. Do you have any socials you want to plug before we get out of the way?
Follow me on Twitter at Logan SSBM, bigger number, better person for sure. Follow me on Twitch at Logan SSBM. That's about it. I don't really care about any other socials. I should probably do YouTube content. I'm thinking about doing video essays, but I have so much on my plate. I'm the kind of person to start like 20 different things at once and then not get good at any of them.
Hey,
uh,
speaking of video essays, if you want to check out some video essays, we have them on the Melee Stats YouTube channel. That's where you can find our long form content. If you want to see episodes of Waiting for Game, also some extras. And I believe we have, I think, is it the only YouTube uploading of Axe versus Secrets, Edwin?
Yeah, I think there might be one other one with sound, but the one I was given was the one without
Okay,
sound
so
because that's
so we also have some uploads of some tournament VODs, some SLP files so that you can check it over there. It's gonna be the Melee Stats archive. Obviously, if you want to watch our show live, we do it on twitch.tv/melee stats. You can follow us over on Twitter where we're going to post about results. We're going to post our links to content. You can find that at twitter.com/melee stats pod. And if you want to see the content that we make on our website, our written content is going to be meleestats.co. You're going to find stuff like Monday Morning Marth. You're going to find When's Melee. And if you are so appreciative of all of that content that we give to you, if you want to support us, you can do so at patreon.com/meleestats. Logan, Edwin, what a wonderful episode. I was afraid that 2 Marths would be too much for me, but it turned out to be just great. I appreciate you guys for being on, and I appreciate everyone for watching. All right, I will see all of you next week. Check me out on the Alston Melee podcast this Thursday. And if you can't do that, then I will see you next week on Waiting for Game. Peace.
See you guys.
Thank you for having me on.